VigilanteWilliamson here with something a little bit different, and maybe something I'll do more of. I'm actually on camera and doing a video. It's been a while since I've done this. And I have a simple question, as always, and that is, why are we so hard on the youth? The youth. D-A-Y-O-U-F, no. The youth. I'm really focusing on Gen Z, and I'll include younger millennials, basically anyone 30 and under. I feel like my generation, which I'm 36, ain't that much older, but older millennials, Gen Xers, and especially especially Gen Xers really, because the boomers are kind of out of it at this point. Boomers are my grandparents' age. But there's a lot of disdain for Gen Z. A lot of, you guys are just lazy. You guys are just, you don't care or whatever. Why are we so hard on the youth? Now, don't get me wrong. Every generation's had its own cross to bear. The boomers had, a lot of the cases, either World War I or II, or World War II, not World War I. That'd be the greatest generation. Some Korean War guys. And then you have Vietnam for the quote-unquote younger boomers. And then Gen X had Desert Storm into Afghanistan, which some of the millennials are good into Afghanistan and Iraq. So, and I'm talking about these war things because these things affected a lot of people. And affected a lot of people of a generation. Progressively less as it went on, but still, those are things that they had their own cross to bear, so to speak, generationally. But it was significantly easier to find a date. Don't act like that doesn't matter. It just was. And also, I mean, we're going through an inflation crisis. In fact, a lot of these Zoomers were born or conceived during the last inflation crisis in 2008. If you had a kid in 2007, that kid's 17, if I did the math correctly. 2008, he's 16, he or she. So some of these kids were actually conceived during the last financial crisis. We've seen wages haven't really went up since I was young. I know a lot of people talk bad about the fight for 15, and I'm not totally pro fight for 15. I'm not totally anti it because all the inflationary shit that has happened already, thanks. Not to get too political and politically homeless, but thank you, Biden. Sending all our money to everywhere else except here. We appreciate it. That hasn't affected the economy at all. It wasn't just him. I mean, Trump, shout out to him and those stimulus checks. That notwithstanding, all the money printing notwithstanding, we're in an economic crisis. We can't afford anything. The prices are going up higher and higher. Home ownership is no longer realistic. I feel like we are not really giving these guys and gals of this generation proper, I don't know if credit's the right word, but we're not really understanding them. We raised them with iPads. A lot of this generation, not to get into the gender gap, that's another can of worms, maybe for the next video, for another day, but most of these, if you're talking about the young men, they've only had female authority figures because they were raised by a single mom, and that's no longer a racial thing, that's a Western thing, raised by a single mom. Then they have nothing but female authority figures all through school. And then they get out in the world and they have usually female bosses in the corporate world. So they've never, all they know is, this idea that there's a patriarchy and oppression. There's a generation of men who don't know what that's based on, have no evidence of that because all they've seen is women in power and they've lessened themselves. That's why and I'll cover it actually tonight. Well, I don't know when this video will come out, but I'm going to do a video on actual cuckolds, a stream. Please check out for that if you're watching this. It's like there's a reason we have this generation that we have. And I don't think we give that enough credit. They didn't just show up. They didn't all just decide to fail. You know what I'm saying? We put them in position to fail. We didn't raise them. We gave them iPads. The economy's been, and I can't really blame anyone in particular. I can't say that it's our fault that the economy crashed. There's a lot of that's politics. A lot of that's, not to get too conspiracy theory, one can of worms per video, just one. But a lot of that is Agenda 2030 base. Check out the World Economic Forum. You'll own nothing and like it. So it's not all necessarily our fault, but we're not looking at the prospects relative to how they were when even I was younger in the mid 2000s or back compared to how they are now. And if you are a 18 to 25-year-old man or woman, the odds of you getting into a relationship and a loving marriage have never been slimmer, at least since we've been recording it. The odds of you getting a job that will allow you to take care of yourself have never been slimmer. You'll probably have to either have multiple jobs, multiple side hustles. Hell, part of the reason I'm doing this video is for this to potentially be a side hustle since I'm this close to monetization after 4 years. They've never been slimmer, so you need either a side hustle or a roommate or both. Rent is going up beyond the pale. The cost of living, the cost of groceries are going up beyond the pale. The cost of fast food, if that's what you're doing, obviously I had too much myself working on that. And shit, I haven't been able to afford fast food as much. I'm struggling with it just like anyone else. Everything's beyond the pale. And so why do you get mad when a generation just says, you know what, I quit? I feel for this generation. I hope they don't stay hopeless. I hope they can get some hope. But you can't just say, we'll just go get a job. Why? We talk about sometimes when it comes to some of the quote-unquote remedial jobs, fast food, retail, these jobs were never meant to be permanent jobs, which on an entry-level basis is true. If you're, working fries at McDonald's, that's not what you're supposed to do permanently. But if you became a shift manager or a store manager, it wasn't unrealistic that you could have at least a decent life. I keep referencing this. It was a Reddit post. It's anecdotal, and it's Reddit, could be a lie. But this guy who said, his dad in the 90s was just a grocery store manager, made about 40, 50K, and that was enough money for him to buy a house, for him to take vacations, and for his mom not to work in the 90s. That's in my lifespan. It ain't like that no more. It ain't like that. And you would really need 3-4 times that amount of money. A grocery store manager ain't making that. So, yeah, you're right. Somebody who's just working a cashier register at Walmart, they shouldn't necessarily expect a living wage. But shouldn't somebody who's in a corporate office making close to 6 figures expect a living wage? We're at a point where that's not even realistic unless you want to live in a area that's getting less and less safe. Again, Agenda 2030 stuff is going on with that as well. Not to get too conspiratorial, but why are we so mad at this generation seeing the cards that they're dealt? They're worse than the cards that we got. They're worse in every way. We have technology. Is that it? I remember when I was younger, because the millennials were the first generation coming into social media and all that stuff. Pun not intended, no diddy. But there was definitely like, oh man, you guys have the internet, you have all this stuff, and you complain. It's like, well, this technology made things worse. Especially if we go back to the dating stuff socially. So why again do we hate Gen Z or Gen Alpha or the younger millennials? And I get it. There are some of them who are ambitionless, who are lazy, but that's not in a vacuum. That's not happening in a vacuum. Whenever something happens at a societal level, it doesn't mean that individuals are abstained from responsibility or accountability, but it does mean there's something else happening. And societally, we are falling pretty much in any metric you can think of. I don't care about the fudge numbers for the economic stuff, because if you watch enough channels on economy and YouTube, or you just look outside your window, try to apply for a job. That's another thing. When these Gen Zers go to apply for a job, they're screwed. Another thing, millennials, we were told to go to college, and a lot of us got college debt because of it. And yeah, you weren't supposed to get a degree in basket weaving or gender studies, but some people got decent degrees and still weren't able to pay it off. Engineering degrees still weren't able to pay off student loans. And then, we talk about champagne socialists. The champagne conservatives will tell you, we'll go into the trades. Well, you actually talk to some of these kids trying to get into the trades. They can't find, if you're in a small town, we talk about, don't let it happen in a small town. Sometimes you're in a small town, you want to be a plumber. The local plumber's not trying to train his competition. The local HVAC's not trying to train their competition. Some places, some people are able to get into trades. And then look at the trades. Truck driving isn't as lucrative, even though it's more necessary than ever. It's not as lucrative as it's once been. The corporations are squeezing the wages out there. So are we really looking at the world that we handed this generation? And it's not like we're all happy and cheery. I mean, goodness gracious, why are we putting so much pressure, so much angst, so much and animosity to Generation Z, given the world that we live in? And I'm not going to say we help create, maybe socially. I remember the millennials were all ironic. It's just sex. No, it's not. There's soul ties. Another can of worms. One can of worms per video. At least that's what I'm aiming for. But yeah, maybe we did socially smooth things in the direction of failure for dating. That much I'll take blame for. It wasn't really my fault, but generationally. But even then, I don't think we would have all this drizzle, sparkle, was it sprinkle? Whatever the fuck this chick's talking about. Or all this feminism versus red pill stuff, which I'll cover in another video. I don't think we would have all that if the finances wasn't so jacked up. If it wasn't so hard to raise a family. Part of the reason, talk about the 666, what women want, 6 inches down there, 6-pack abs, and 6 figures. Well, you know what? Of all those things, 6 figures is kind of realistic if you go classically. Why? Because you need at least 6 figures to raise a family. And before, in at least recent Western history, one person could finance a family. And that's not been true at least the past 10 years and certainly the past 5. And so this generation is having to deal with the financial. There's a lot of other stuff. We'll get into that stuff, starts the dating stuff in another video. But all that stuff is happening on the backbone of a jacked up economy. So I'm not saying that Generation Zoomers deserve cupcakes and the passes and whatever. And hey, we always talked about, well, they were raised with participation trophies. Who gave them no participation trophies? They didn't give it to themselves. That was us. So I'm not saying that Generation Z deserves no blame, but I think they're getting too much blame, and I think they're not giving enough empathy. Maybe not sympathy, but empathy. We should have more empathy for this generation and what they're going through. But you tell me what you think. You can disagree with me. It's okay. Disagreement's fine. Let me know what you think in the comments. If you like the video, please like the video. If you're so obliged to share and subscribe, please do that. And even if you do none of these things, thank you for watching. Thank you for your time. Good night and God bless. I'll talk to you guys later. Peace.